In order for this video to make sense, I need to ask you a question. Do you believe in an objective reality? I'll leave you to think on that for a few seconds. Now, the answer to this question doesn't matter nearly as much as your questioning of it, because regardless of whether you believe in an objective reality or not, despite the very likely evidence that it exists, you don't have access to it, at least on a regular basis. Unless you are meditating and having the experience of dissolution and no mind and of true oneness, you are not experiencing an objective reality. The seemingly small realization is actually so important that it could be one of the solutions as to why the world has become such a strange place. You have certainly felt it. People are now either too quick to attack or too quick to react, and what used to be anger restricted to social media has pervaded our conversations. And it's very often that in a normal conversation, someone ends up being offended, feeling attacked, or being angry for some reason. Polarization is one of the most important problems that as humans we are facing, but the reason why this is happening is actually way simpler than what we might think. Now you may ask, okay, but what does it matter whether someone understands that they're living in a relative reality? Isn't that obvious for everyone? And I would agree with you on that, because most people will say that yes, my reality is relative. And in controlled environments, they might even act as if that was true. They would actually act according to that set belief. But take them out of that familiar context and put them in a familiar situation, and you will see just how quickly most people completely switch to defending their relative reality as the one objective truth, the universal truth. We all have the tendency to mistake our set of beliefs and experiences, our relative reality, as the objective reality. But what we're speaking of here is truth with capital T. It's the truth that is and will always be the same. It's the thing that is immutable and changing and that will continue to exist and to be the same after you die, after everyone here dies. It doesn't care about what you are and who you are and what you believe in. It just is. Now, before you get offended, perhaps there's nothing wrong with living a relative reality. Quite on the contrary, that's precisely why we're here, so that objective reality can experience itself again for the first time. Is that our division, our seemingly division, exists so that objective reality can look at it again and again and again and go through the experience of life. And that's beautiful and that's normal. That's something that we should not be condemning in any way. Yet most people seem to have a hard time accepting that someone would perceive reality differently from them. And I think this is a problem that has probably existed ever since humans came up with language, but this past decade has become so much worse. With geopolitical tensions building up and social media exacerbating all the worst, there's this urge, this pressure to pick a side and defend it as if your life depends on it, as if your identity is exactly the same as your ideological position. So what changed here? The answer to that is simple: isolation. We became more polarized the moment we became more isolated. Why has this happened? Well, the first reason is because we have learned to mistake our identity, what we are, with our ideologies. So this turns into a total intolerance over someone who may have a different ideology than ours, because it's a literal living threat to our existence. Because their worldview clashes directly with mine, and since I am my worldview, I cannot accept that this person exists within my sphere. For example, how many times have you rejected having a conversation, a discussion, a debate with someone because you know that their ideals are not matched with yours? Worse than that, how many times have you refused to have said conversation with said person, but because someone told you that they have a certain ideal. You didn't even bother to see for yourself. You just took their word for granted, and you decided to close off a possible exchange because of what someone decided that that person was, because of someone's attribution of value to the person. So the first consequence of this is that we lack the exposure to people that have different values from us. And this makes us very bad at seeing people beyond what their values are, beyond what their ideologies are. We learn very quickly to stereotype people and to market them and to see them as, okay, this person is this, so excluded, this person is this, so included. And as time goes, there will be a loss of nuance and of gray area people, which all of us are, because most people don't fall perfectly into any category given the chance to express themselves and to be themselves. So there's a loss of the nuance of human experience. People are either A or B with no interference between the two. It also means a loss for the willingness to understand people that are different from you and to have compassion and to develop just a general love for humankind regardless of what they call themselves. And it's also a great way to block your access to experiences that are different from yours, to seeing the world as much bigger and much more vast and interesting than your life is. Because let's be honest, our lives are so much more interesting because we get to exchange with people that are very interesting and very different from us. So perhaps a good portion of the world is blocked from us because we decide that since they don't fulfill the requirements, they don't get to interact with us. And that's still a huge loss. Another problem that leads to isolation, which in turn leads to polarization, is the fact that nowadays people only exclusively want to be in ideal situations or environments. With this, I mean only being with like-minded people, which makes you very bad at connecting and being with different people. Because let's say that you have a set of criteria for someone that might become your friend. How often do you find people that actually meet precisely those criteria? The fact that it's very hard to meet those people makes it that we are slowly becoming worse and worse at making friends, and worse than that, we're becoming worse and worse at being in uncomfortable situations, so situations that are not ideal. The importance of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is that you become such a strong person by doing so. We forget that being scared is normal, that being a brave person is not the absence of fear, as every cliche movie has said. It's not the absence of fear, it's the doing it with fear. We forget that arriving at a party where you don't know anyone, arriving at any social gathering, doing something, it's supposed to be scary, but you still do it, and that's why it's so rewarding. Having to adapt, it's one of the basics of human survival. Is we have to adapt to new settings. We cannot just arrive anywhere and expect people to fulfill our demands about how human interaction should be and how socialization should be and how humans and what are the values that every person should have in order for them to be worthy of my time. That's not how socialization works. You're supposed to give as much as you take. So all of this to say that loneliness is exacerbated by the fact that now we only want to put ourselves in perfect ideal situations, and second, that we are unable and unwilling to put ourselves in unwilling circumstances where we would find people that may be very different from us, but that would make us overcome our fear and just be an overall more adaptable person that can thrive in any setting. Another thing that is fostering this isolation, therefore polarization, is the fact that we forget how deep down we all want the same thing. We forget that deep down, what we want is to be free of suffering and to be happy. And so we never stop to wonder, why does this person that has such a seemingly different opinion from me, why do they think that? Where do they come from? Because if we were to analyze the reasons why everyone believes what they believe, we would find that deep down the reasons are all the same. For example, a progressive might advocate for equal rights and a social safety net because they believe that fairness and collective care are essential for a society to flourish. On the other hand, a conservative, right-wing, whatever you want to call it, might resist the same politics because they believe that individual responsibility, freedom, and meritocracy are the foundations for human dignity and prosperity. But if you dig deep enough, if you ask or ask questions, they would both ultimately say that this each respective reasons is what leads to a good, fair, and meaningful life. That in the end, that's the best way to avoid suffering and lead to happiness for everyone. So the core reason why these people are moved is the same. They don't come from different places. They just expresses themselves in different ways. What's the consequence of an increasingly polarized society? Well, the problem is that it makes people stupid, to say it very plainly. I'm sorry about that, but that's true. Because it makes people very easily swayed from one side to the other without any questioning, any critical thinking. People are a lot more easily controlled because there's an automatic exclusion process that happens once you adhere to a certain side. You know that automatically, if you are from X side, you will not get along and you cannot get along and you don't even want to get along with the Y side, with the other side. You learn not to question things because some things just assume the unquestionable label and you don't even get to ask more about it because it's just no, that it's too right wing or it's too left wing or it's too something. It's always branded as something that you don't get to question because if you do, you're crossing the line, you're going to the other side, and that's not something that you want to do because there's merit and there's pride in taking sides. That's what we all should be doing because there's a right side and there's a wrong side. But this is a planned move and it's meant to make you automatically exclude people from your world just because supposedly they have views that you don't agree with. It also makes you believe that one opinion should be one thing or the other, as if there was no middle ground. Wisdom lies in the middle ground, and it's where most people would place themselves if they could. But we are left no choice. We are sold this idea that you must either be this or that, otherwise you are accepted nowhere, because this side only wants people that have a certain characteristics and a certain set of beliefs, and the other side wants the complete opposite. And if you have some beliefs from this side and from the other side, then you don't belong anywhere. And what we crave the most as people is to belong. That's why we will accept some ideals that perhaps might not be as in line with our true values as we would like, because we want to belong. I think true rebellion, these days especially, lies in refusing to take sides, in choosing to form your own individual ideology, which might be a conjunction of the different set of beliefs, systems that come from anywhere, it doesn't matter, into creating your own perspective and your own definition of truth, which is of course relative and which might not even actively be against something, but it's the one that makes sense to you and that was built with your own constructive criticism and with your own perspective for the ideals that you want to have with your life and for your life. You don't need to accept truth in bulk, like I am this so I have to, that being this means accepting all of these 10 truths that don't really make that much sense to me. Another consequence of isolation is the loss of people that question and challenge our beliefs. Because there are essentially two types of people: the people that validate your existence and the people that question your existence. People that validate your existence are the ones that reaffirm your vision of the world, that help you attain your objectives by being living reminders of what you want, who you are, what you want to become. And the conversations with these people is usually like, what? I know, right? Exactly, blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what I think. And yes, I completely agree. And it's things that really uplift you and that make you feel like, yes, okay, let's go at this. It makes you feel understood. It makes you feel like you make sense to people in this world. And that's Super important. That's the things that drive you to continue to pursue your goals, your objectives, and whatever you want to attain in life. The thing is that those conversations don't change you that much. You might learn new things, you might be motivated to put more things that you're saying into action, and you might even look up to that person because they're the living example of what you want to become. But they don't really make you question why you even want to pursue those things in the first place, why you believe in that in the first place. The other type of people doesn't say yes, they say yes but, or yes and how did you know that? How do you know that? Where did you got that from? Who told you that? They're the ones who will be asking the right questions. They're going to be the ones that are going to question your truth, your worldview, and why even do you believe in what you believe. They are absolutely essential. Those people really make you question about whether what you know is even true. They question your truth. They question your motives, your beliefs, and it requires you to go even deeper as to why you believe in them in the first place. Or perhaps realize that you don't know why you believe in that at all. You don't have a good enough reason. You don't know why you believe, you just believe because someone told you to believe. Because of the challenge, they're the ones who force you to do some soul searching, some world exploring, to read more, to know more, to look within and look outwards. Because your seemingly perfect perception of the world was very incomplete. And they're the ones who pointed it out because they're not within your bubble. They can see from an outwards perspective, which is what we often lack about ourselves. If you allow opposition, it can strengthen your position or make you realize that you have no solid foundation for what you thought was immutable and true. And that's amazing because you have a much more real relationship with reality and with truth. You don't shy away from challenge, you actually go after it because you know that's what it takes to find truth. Truth is just truth. It's not meant to be gate kept or protected or shied away from. Truth will always come out, and so you should not be afraid that someone challenges you, because that's the thing that is going to make you closer to it, to what you're looking for. So let yourself be challenged. You might realize that you have a lot more things in common with your opponents than you think, and that your apparently opposing views of the world are not so opposing. It might be even complementary. It might complement in very unexpected ways the way you think about the world, the way you think about yourself. Truth comes from diving so deep within the human experience that those labels, those ideologies, those brands completely lose their meaning, and we come down to the essence of what we are, which is so much more vast and infinite and boundless than what these pretends words and divisions might appear. Truth can only be found when you choose not to avert the gaze from what composes life in all its forms, not just a select expression of what you deem acceptable. It might come from an enemy, a friend, a stranger. It doesn't matter, but let yourself be surprised. You might be surprised, so go out there and explore.